Hi everyone, it's Yvette Le Blowitz from SPAITGIRL.com and welcome to the Spirit Girl Talk Show podcast. I'm super excited to be here with you today in this online audio and video space and with our very special guest, and her name is Kristin Vikjord, and she is the author of Inner Spark. She's a clinical psychologist, a writer, a yoga teacher, and a mindfulness teacher also and facilitator. Kristin Vikjord, welcome to the Spirit Girl podcast show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be part of it. Hi, everyone.
Yeah. Well, it's 9. What time is it there where you are now in Norway?
It's 9 p.m.
Oh, yeah. It's I think my alarm went off at 5 o'clock or something this morning here in Australia. So I really, really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today with our podcast listeners. It's incredible. I'm such a fan of your work, as you know.
Thank you.
I absolutely love everything you do, are about, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be able to share this book with everyone.
Yeah, it's incredible. Your publishing house in Australia has been sharing it, and it's really making traction right around the world because through your book, you are helping people find their calm in stressful, in such a stressful world. But before we dive into your brand new book, are you happy to tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and so they can get a better feel for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a Norwegian. I live in Norway, in the north of Norway, in the part of Norway where it's ruled by the northern lights in the winter. So it's very dark here in the winter time. And in the summer we have the midnight sun. So, the nature is like very much in our face here, and it's huge and raw, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I grew up here. I've been traveling the world and living here and there, but I'm back here with my boys, and I am in my daily life I work as a clinical psychologist. Right now I'm working in the psychiatric hospital with addictions and substance abuse. Previously, I've been working with eating disorders and a variety of different mental health conditions and illnesses. And I love my job.
Wow, that's incredible. You mentioned there you're working with obviously now substance abuse and addiction. That must be very challenging and very difficult to see for someone like you're so healthy and you want the best for everyone, but I guess at the same time very rewarding when you can transform someone's lives and get them from addiction to not being addicted to a particular thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the end, everything I do is kind of about the same thing. It's about giving hope or increasing hope in everyone that I meet. And so and I think it's for every human being, it's the same. No matter what kind of struggles we might meet in our life or in ourselves, we kind of encounter the same kind of structures or fabrics in ourselves, that we can use different things to try and help ourselves, this part of hope to elevate that in people, that's really the core of what I love to do when I work with people.
Yeah, and when you chose the career as a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, was there someone who heavily influenced that decision in your life?
Me?
I love it. I love it. I was maybe waiting for you to say my mom, maybe Oprah. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah. No, actually, no, my parents are not in the healthcare workers or anything like that. They have very different career paths. Well, actually, I was just very intrigued. Okay, I'm going to tell you how it started. When I was a little girl, I was very interested in animals and biology. I watched all, David Attenborough shows. And as I grew older, I was like, okay, but what about the human animal? And I wanted to learn about the brain. And then I read this fantastic book when I was about 15. By this guy Irvin Yalom. He wrote this book. It's called When Nietzsche Wept, and it just it was so intriguing, this book. And after that, I decided I want to study psychology. I want to know more. So that's kind of how it started.
Oh, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And when it comes to books, you have so many books behind you.
Yeah, I do.
Is reading books a really great part of your journey in life as a clinical psychologist, and just as a being? You obviously love reading and learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a lot as a child, and of course, in the studies, we had to read so much, and I still enjoy very much reading. And I just get very inspired by reading, and it just lights me up in so many ways. And I have a big bookshelf.
Yeah, I know. Your bookshelf's incredible. For all of our podcast listeners who are tuning into this on audio, you'll have to go to the Spirit Girl podcast show on YouTube, because there are so many books on that bookshelf. So I want to ask, before we go into the book now, when you talk about, like, I'm in Australia, so we generally will see the sun every day. Even in winter, we know that the sun rises, we know that the sun sets very much. And we tend to even can get a little bit down, a little bit depressed when it's overcast and raining. Now, where you live, you don't have that sunrise in the winter, and it's dark during the day and dark during the night. Do your body naturally know when to go to bed, or do you have to be very structured? Because there's this big thing going on at the moment where they're talking about how important sleep is, how we need to switch off an hour before bedtime. Do these same principles apply to where you live?
Oh, yeah, very much so. I think sleep hygiene is something that's very, important and relevant for everyone wherever you live. However, of course, the climate where you live and how it is will influence you in different ways. Me personally, I'm not very affected by the changes of the light. I sleep very much, I sleep very good. But of course, people do have changes in their sleeping patterns wintertime here versus the summer. So for everyone, it's important to stay true to a sleep hygienic, routine. And of course, especially now with the pandemic, because we spend a lot more time indoors and probably a lot more behind screens. And these are kind of, the aspects that can really also influence the sleep system in our brain. So yeah, I'm all for those sleep hygienic interventions.
Oh, that is so good to know. And with your book, once again, congratulations on the launch of Inner Spark. Can you share with our audience, what does Inner Spark mean, or what is it about, your book, and why did you choose the title Inner Spark?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love this one. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so actually, I can start with the latter first. So the reason why it's called Inner Spark is this anecdote about my grandmother. And when I was writing the book, when I started to write the book, I was like, it was all about how to kind of get out of all this stuckness that you can have when you are, entangled in your mind and you get, or you feel stuck. And then I remember this anecdote by my grandmother. She told me this when I was, in my very early 20s. And I remember this when I was mid-30s, when I had my second child, because I was like, with my hair all over, sitting on the floor and being sleep deprived. And I was like, God, I remember my grandmother. She said to me, many years ago, Kristin, you're like a glass of champagne, you're so bubbly and sparkly. And then I was sitting there on the floor as a 30-year-old something, and I thought, I don't feel very sparkly at the moment. And that's from there, it kind of, came out this how to get back to your inner spark.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Inner spark, and from your grandmother, sparkly, bubbly and sparkly like a glass of champagne. That's so beautiful. And did you feel that when you were on the floor, feeling like you had your second child by now, were you feeling just burnt out, depleted, exhausted from work, being a mom? Like, what got you to that point?
Yeah, I was thinking about all of these things, of course, and I was feeling, because of sleep deprivation, I was exhausted, and, I was like, how my energy, how can I kind of get it back, and what is it that I like to do, and all these kind of things. And so this is where, I was inspired to write the book. And of course, I've been teaching yoga and mindfulness for, I don't know, 20 years, I think. And also with my work, I was thinking about my clients, and I thought, what would be something that could be helpful in such a situation, and this was how the book kind of came out. It contains a lot of things that that I do teach and that I speak with my clients about as well. But I wanted it to be a book that you can just open wherever and you find something that could be useful for you or inspire you to do a little something, So that's, how it came about.
Yeah, so that's incredible. So you're able to draw upon, I can see you love yoga and mindfulness and meditation and self-help and self-care and all of that. What does your self-care rituals look like now as an author? And you're obviously doing your work and you're still a mom and you've got so much on.
Yeah. Well, I try to be, every Sunday I have this thing where I look in my agenda. I'm like, looking at the week, and, it's obviously filled with work and mom stuff and all these kind of things. But I really try, I make an effort to put in pauses every day for me in various ways, things I like to do. And I'm very for this kind of playful and creative things as well, where I can get kind of filled up with energy or new impulses or anything like that. So those are kind of the two things right now in my life that I really highlight and focus on having in every day. Yeah.
Yeah. And with your yoga practice now or meditation, what does that look like? I've spoken to a number of yoga teachers or even psychologists who express that yoga, as long as you're doing it, you're doing yoga. Like we don't need to do it for 1 hour to practice yoga or to be a yogi. What does yoga look like for you? Is it okay if we just do, say, 10 minutes of yoga and we're better than 0 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have your yoga mat there or your little corner, wherever you want to do this practice. And I'm very pro this kind of gentle movements. What I teach primarily nowadays is mindful yoga. So it's really this moving into meditation, which I love personally, because I think, all the other things that I do in my daily life, which I'm sure, for most women is like this, is kind of high energy level, and you kind of have to, run fast and do things fastly. So for me, this is really grounding, and this aspect of getting back into my body, and this is also what I want to share through the book, because that's kind of the most important point that you can, or the most important thing you can do for yourself to cultivate more of this sense of ease in your daily life.
Wow, more ease and getting back into the body. And you're so right. I have my yoga mat in the set place, my gold Buddha, my gratitude journal, my book that I'm reading, and it's like my go-to mat. So I never sit in a chair in the morning. I always sit straight on the yoga mat to ground, and maybe it's 15 minutes meditation or 10 minutes yoga on YouTube, but it's the doing versus the not doing. And I was about to ask you, like you mentioned getting back into our body.
Yeah.
We can sometimes, and I felt like with the global pandemic, it was so overwhelming with the messaging that was happening on media in general was, you know, if I touch something or we touch something, we might catch COVID-19, not know that we even have it. And then for 14 days, we'd have no symptoms, but we could potentially have it, then, you know, give it to our family, friends, or spread it in the community. And maybe we would be the reason, sadly, that someone could die. Like, it was quite heavy. There was a lot of fear. It's been quite a heavy year. I think as the global pandemic's now into the kind of, we're going into the second year, that initial fear has sort of dropped a bit because we're sort of like, oh, okay, it's okay. I've been shopping and I've been touching stuff and I've been going about my day and I haven't died and someone in my family hasn't died. But overall, everywhere in the world, we're at different stages. Some people are celebrating having a baby. Some people, sadly, are mourning losing a loved one. If we've got so many thoughts in our head, so we feel like we're kind of living up here in thought, is there something you would recommend apart from the yoga to just feel like reconnected?
Yeah, so I have several aspects actually. In my book, there is this 8 well-being prescriptions, and there's a lot of those things that you can do for yourself. The first and foremost that I want to bring up now is this connect with nature, you know. And I'm aware of that not everyone live in this kind of big and raw nature that I do, but it can be anything. It can be, as long as you can be outside and connect with natural elements, you know. So if you can walk in the park, or if you can go to the beach, or if you just have a lot of plants around you, you know, anything that is nature-like and nature close, you know, this is something that can help. So that's one thing. And the other thing I want to say about this grounding thing is also that you could work on connecting with people. So even though it's harder, you know, as it is, you have to keep the distance and everything, but we can connect either, of course, through the screens, or if you have your cohort, you know, the people that you may be close together with, is really to do this. You know, it's very important for our mental health. Both of these things, nature and being together with someone.
I love that. Nature, because I love being out in nature. And I know, because I've looked at, obviously your website has the most beautiful video of you. And if everyone can go to KristinVikjord, just to have a look.com, because you have the most incredible video of you in nature, like in your element, in your country, and it's so vast and beautiful and green and lush, and it really blew me away that you are able to connect to all of the elements of nature, which I loved. And I too love being in nature, and it does really like fill my cup up and make me feel good. You mentioned connection.
Yeah,
staying connected, because we obviously people felt very isolated during the pandemic or lockdown, but just staying connected, like whether that's video or phone or just anyway, groups, texts, beautiful. And now that your book has come out, what have you loved seeing most? Obviously, like, how did you get time to write your book? Because you've got so much going on. Did you have to literally put time aside to sit down and write your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I had to. Well, I'm actually quite. I like to have things, in order. So I like to plan things, and I started writing this book many years ago. So that was quite a process as well to really, get to the main core of what I wanted to share. So then when I started really like, okay, now I'm going to start from page 1 to the last page. That was a quite fast process, actually. That I think it just took me 9 months. So it was just like any pregnancy. It was really like, very dedicated. And yeah, I'm busy like other, career women and mothers. So what I did was that I just had to set aside a little time every morning, about an hour. And I was, being content with being able to write a little bit every day. And that's how it went.
I love the dedication. And, it's so interesting about it being a baby, because I interviewed another author at the time, and she would resonate with what you're saying, and many authors, because she said it really was like birthing another baby and creating that time. You have 2 sons, like 2 boys, who are growing up in this social media world. So obviously I, and I'm sure you're probably the same, and many listeners grew up in an era where we didn't have the mobile phone. We didn't have social media apps. I didn't know in Australia what a girl was wearing in Singapore or in Hong Kong or America. You've done a lot of work in also eating disorders.
Yeah.
Have you seen in your clinical experience an increase in that area with the boom of social media?
Well, I'm not really sure if I have. What I do experience, though, is that because of social media, I do register that this new generation, they are actually speaking more openly about everything, mental health, So that's actually my experience, that even though social media has a lot of drawbacks and, not so good sides to it, if there's more awareness around it and what it does, then it does also have this openness aspect around it. However, I do believe that, all these youngsters trying to figure out how does this all work and all, they do need a lot of guidance. And of course, as adults, we can't always be where it's happening, but it's the same as in the schoolyards or, wherever they're hanging out with their friends, or how we used to do it, the adults or the parents are not there. So they can't really, check up, what's happening if someone's being bullied or anything like that. So I think the same goes for social media. So I think as parents, or adults, using social media, we just really have to be aware how we use it and how we communicate about it to the youngsters and the new generation.
Yeah, that's incredible. And if someone was struggling with an eating disorder, whilst they need to see a psychologist or the psychiatrist or a real trained physician in the healthcare, would you suggest that, like, if I find myself, if I use social media too much, as an example, Instagram, and I'll be completely honest, if I spend too much time on there, I can get into a phase of, self-comparison. And I know they say you shouldn't self-compare, but I think the brain does like to compare.
Yeah.
Or it's trying to rationalize, and it's making a decision. Do I like this dress? Do I not like this dress? So, but I can now catch myself thinking, oh, that's a trigger. I need to spend less time. Like, now I need to switch off because I've gone from a positive headspace looking at things I like to then, oh, I've gone over the edge. Okay, this is negative headspace coming in. So I've become more aware.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not, because I've struggled myself with like, I guess, eating disorders, but just very being not eating as much back in when I was a teenager, because I was so fearful of getting fat, even though I was size 10 or size 9 or size 8. So there's that little bit of, I think I always say there's that little bit of me that still is very much always, can compare, even though that we say we shouldn't. But would you say that's an okay thing to do? So if people are feeling the moment they can catch themselves comparing, is there a technique we could do to stop the comparison, or do we just take a break, acknowledge that we've hit that mindset of comparison and pull back? It's a sign.
Yeah, I think the latter is a good one. In what we talked about earlier about sleep hygiene, I think now, this is about digital hygiene and social media hygiene. And I love, what you were saying there, being aware about what's your triggers, and then what is it that you do about it when you become aware of them. So I think this is one of the things that we can work on the most for each and every one, becoming aware of triggers. And usually we're not aware of them until we feel it in the body, right? So we start to feel anxious, or we start to feel some sort of bodily sensation that is uncomfortable. And then we're like, something happened. Oh, my headspace or my mindset changed. It's not positive anymore. I don't feel good. So this is for sure a clear moment where you want to shut down the social media, take a break, and do one of the other things that can rather fill you up with something positive or something nurturing rather.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing, because I only have figured, I think it's taken me so long to figure out the trigger. The trigger was if I look at say modeling photos, that just boom will be too much. Whereas when I'm looking at positive affirmations, cute little dogs, self-help books about books, it just fills my cup up and it's so exciting. But then if I can go down the rabbit hole, if it's based on just body image, photos, modeling, and all of those photos that the brands share, oh, you should look like this. If you want to wear my swimwear, you need to and you see this array of photos. So what other things, with the eating disorders, it can generate though, can't it? From a young age, maybe someone said something to you, or it can start at a young age, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can start as something more unconscious, as a mastering strategy that is kind of developing if you're struggling with different things that you are not quite aware of as a child, right? So it can be different triggers. For some people, it's a somatic disease, could be an onset. So it's not the idea of wanting to become slimmer or thinner. It usually the onset is something else, and then there, little by little, it starts to kind of top on top of each other, different things, and you have chosen, or subconsciously you choose this strategy as a way of coping with difficult emotions. So that's when it starts to become tricky, and it goes deeper and it sticks. So it's very important, for parents and adults to try and have a good and a healthy relationship with their own body, how communicating with children. And what you say here about social media, many people get triggers for all sorts of reasons, and it is a rabbit hole for sure for a lot of things. So it's just really important to know yourself. I think that's the best way to say it. Try and get to know yourself and your triggers, and know when you need to back off.
Yes. And I think yoga helps with that, doesn't it? Yoga and meditation. I felt that it was only when I started practicing yoga, I developed a really healthy relationship with my body. obviously my mind and soul, but becoming one. And just really, like you said at the start of the podcast show, you know, feeling into the body, being the body, connecting with that body. And I feel that I always say to anyone, if you're struggling with body image issues, roll out the yoga mat and start that self-love practice with yourself. There is a lot of talk about self-love in social media. It's like the buzzword, you know, Self-Love Sunday, which we practice at the Spirit Girl podcast, showing community, self-love this, self-love that. And people say, oh, self-love isn't self-care, and self-love is what you say to yourself. What does self-love mean to you, or how could we practice self-love?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the first that comes to mind is how you value yourself, you know, and how you, what you do for yourself and how you nurture yourself. And of course, that inner dialogue that keeps, you know, going about all the time, you know, it tends to be pretty critical and harsh. And I think especially in those times when we are experiencing difficult emotions, or, you know, this critical inner dialogue, it becomes very hardcore, and it can draw you down into very negative thought spirals. So self-love is really valuing yourself and start to invest in understanding yourself more, in the sense of doing the good things for yourself. So one of the things I love is this: you can never do this enough, to be kind to yourself, you know, practice kindness and patience to yourself. I think that's very, very important.
I love that. Practice kindness towards yourself. And you mentioned the word patience.
Yes.
Patience. So, because we can get impatient, say if we're trying to lose weight or we're trying to tone up, or we can become so impatient, or we're waiting on, you know, the next book deal, or people are wanting to grow their, because I get so many people reaching out to me wanting to grow their audience. But you just mentioned patience. So just patience. That's a really interesting thing, because at times I don't feel we practice patience enough. But that is so sweet. Patience. Okay. I'm going to try and practice that more myself too. Be patient. And you, like, obviously it's Norway is, how have you been faring with this global pandemic?
Well, actually, Norway was pretty fast with shutting down everything, the first round. So that was at least something good. So the first round was pretty hardcore here as well. However, I have big understanding, you know, like here, of course, it's very big, and there are not that many people living here in the north. So we've been very, very lucky. Now in the second round, the Oslo area, the south of Norway, is again in a big lockdown. We are not here in the north, but we do have some cases as well. But now, of course, the vaccines are coming very fastly here, and it goes fast here because we are few people. Yeah, I think, you know, it's been Norway and the government here, we're very happy with how they have done and resolved this situation as it is, even though it's hardcore for everyone, of course. Yeah.
I love your positive attitude. That is incredible. And thank you for sharing, because we're in all different stages right around the world. And obviously you mentioned that word patience, and I feel that that's the word of the year. Patience is to allow this process to unfold and accept what it is we are. Now, when it comes to your food, because you have such incredible skin, your skin is glowing. I know you're a busy mum, but what does food look like for you? What are some of your go-to food that you like to have within the week?
Oh, well, I eat a lot of fruit and vegetables, of course. So I just had a smoothie, actually, avocado and like banana, peanut butter, and some chocolate powder. Gotta have that. No, I eat a lot of vegetables. I also do eat meat, a lot of fish. Of course, here the climate is Arctic, so we kind of really need to make sure we have all the good solid foods to stay energized. And but I think my eating is pretty normal, I would say. It's not something fancy diet or anything like that. It's just, yeah.
And have you been missing travel and things like that?
I have, and I have been traveling a lot, of course, earlier. But this is where the patience comes in, right? So I just keep telling myself and the children, because they want to travel too, to warmer places. This is just how it's gonna be for quite a while. And we're going to explore the region a lot more in the summer. And, there's just so much to do here. So that's fine. And I do believe, for my own sake, I was traveling once a month to Amsterdam before the pandemic, teaching there. And so this was actually for me very good, because, it's good to just take a step back and stay put. And I think it's really also good for the climate that we are not traveling so much with the airplane anymore.
Actually, you just had the greatest point there. It's been a great opportunity for the planet, Mother Earth, just to take a break from all of those flights and planes. And because I was like you too, doing so much travel internationally, and it gets exhausting after time. And it wasn't until I stopped, slowed down, went into lockdown, and travel ceased internationally that I realized that you can actually burn out by doing too much travel, by being away from home. And I think we all realized, and you can definitely, I'm sure all of our listeners resonate with this, as well as yourself, where we were doing so much, too much. We didn't realize it was only when we stopped that it was like, holy guacamole. Wow, how do we fit all of that in? And how do we do all of that? And we were sort of at that high speed level.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is for sure, a way of, if you interpret it like Mother Nature is saying, like how you kind of have to step back and if we flip it a little bit, we can say that even though it's hardcore for so many and it's devastating, it's also a way where we have to look at the way we live, and take a big step back, pause, and get back into our own little space. Because indeed, like you said, we were traveling all over, vibrating all over, just like it's we really need to focus our energy in the near surroundings, in our near communities, with the people we have in our immediate surroundings.
Yeah, you're so right. And it allowed us to bring some global focus back onto family, and, as you said, connection and self-care and mental health, and our elderly, them being the focus of how can we help them, protect them. And so there's been so many incredible things. I've seen so much love, between different ages and countries. And I guess, like, here's an example. I wouldn't be connecting with you and sharing your Inner Spark book today if I was still traveling over in the Maldives, because I used to do the Spirit Girl travel show, do travel presenting. And now, like, when I went into lockdown, it was like, okay, just like, how can I serve and be of service to others? And then it was like, create podcast shows to share books, tips, feelings, and ideas on how you can feel good. Now, I could talk to you forever and ever and ever about where you live, which is fascinating. And then your book, which I can't wait for everyone to grab a copy of, because you radiate this really calm feeling, really calm. So if we want to feel good and connected, we can go out in nature. You mentioned that, be in nature. Calm. Can we just create calm by tuning into our own breath?
Yeah, absolutely. So breath is the easiest and most fastest way to create, to put the brake on the nervous system, to get that parasympathicus on. So breathing slowly. And I always say, if you can breathe at least, or at a minimum, 3 breaths, and focus on your exhale. You want to have length in your exhale. And if you can do that for 3 breaths, then I'm sure you can do a couple of more. And if you breathe like that for 5 to 10 minutes, focusing on a long or elongated exhale, that's the most simple practice you can do.
Wow. So do we have to have our eyes closed for that?
You don't have to. You can also actually just keep your eyes down towards the ground, and like with a soft gaze. And then you can inhale slowly, counting to 4, and then exhale, counting to 6. So if you have that count, yeah, that's a good one.
So we're inhaling through our nostrils, obviously our nose. Can we exhale? Do we have to exhale out through the nose or through the mouth, or does it not matter?
I think if you're a beginner with this kind of breathing, maybe it feels very strange to exhale also through the nose. I prefer it, but I've been practicing a lot of yoga, and I think a lot of yogis really prefer that. If it's your first time, you can just exhale through your mouth. But if you can exhale through your nose.
Oh, wow. That's really great to know, because just finding that little minute of inner peace and calm, because you radiate that. You're just glowing and you're so radiant, even though it's so late at night and it's bedtime and way past your bedtime, which I'm so mindful of. But with your book, before we say goodbye, what is one of the, I guess, wishes or hope for your book readers?
Well, my biggest wish is that you find something in there that you can use in your daily life. And what I want utmost is that you can find some hope, inspiration and hope, and see that, this is a process that you can take step by step. It doesn't have to happen immediately. This life and stressors, they keep going and flowing, in all these waves. But it's just to start, and then take it step by step, and then you can fuel yourself and nurture yourself, and then you will find this inner spark and a sense of ease in your daily life.
I love that. You'll find your inner spark and a sense of ease in daily life. And would you say that when we practice more self-care and sort of attend to tuning in with our mind, our thoughts, body, like getting really self-aware, that can then help with the de-stressing, can help with negative thoughts, overthinking as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the more we get back into our body, the more we can decrease, this thought chaos or negative thought spirals. However, of course, if you have been struggling with the different mental health issues, then this intensity of in the body, the sensations in the body are not comfortable, and that's kind of the last thing you want to do, is to be in your body. So there's a process of getting to that point as well. And I always like to say that, because yoga and mindfulness is like, we think, oh, it's the solution to everything, but there is a point where it's actually more challenging to connect with the body. But as long as you know that, and if you start practicing kindness and patience, then you can little by little get to know yourself through connecting to your body when it feels safe and it feels comfortable. So you can really embody yourself with ease and goodness. That's what I like to say. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being a beautiful, beautiful inner spark, a radiant light, especially in these global pandemic times, which is really challenging. We've had so many challenges prior to the global pandemic, just in day-to-day life. But I just truly love how through your book, Inner Spark, you can take us on that journey with practical exercises to just help us find our inner spark again. And just thank you for reminding us to all embrace the self-kindness and also just the patience, which I'm going to do a lot more of myself. So I'll thank you again for joining us. It's been an absolute honor, pleasure. I just so love your work. You are such a light worker, just helping people all around the world just to really feel connected. And there's nothing better when I'm an overthinker and I get anxious thoughts, and there's nothing worse when you just like feel like you're out of your head. And then just you really truly help us to come back to ourselves, like embodied, to feel that wholeness, and it's such a gift. So thank you again for everything you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for all the good work that you do, keep doing that. It's so important so we can all, be inspired and support each other.
Yeah, thank you again. So we'll grab, I encourage everyone and inspire everyone. Thank you so much for the kind words to Kristin, because I'm so grateful. But I inspire everyone now who's tuning into the Spirit Girl podcast show to grab a copy of your book, and Booktopia in Australia. And I will leave the link in the podcast show, actually has your book, which I'm so grateful for and happy for. And Pan Macmillan, it's your author's publishing house here in Australia. And I'm just, I love that they've looking after your book here in Australia, but your book's available globally, online, or they can go to your website. What's the best way to stay in touch with you now after this podcast show?
Well, actually, you can find me very easy through Instagram. It's just my name at Kristin Vikjord, or you can find me through my website, and you can just drop me an email there. And, just don't hesitate to find me and send me any questions or thoughts you might have. And I'm just going to try and help as best as I can. So please, don't hesitate to reach out.
Oh, beautiful. Well, we'll do that. And thank you again. We will say goodbye to our beautiful, incredible author, clinical psychologist, all-time round meditation teacher, mindfulness facilitator, teacher, and incredible human spiritual being who is raising our consciousness and allowing us to reconnect and find our inner spark again. So thank you again. We will say goodbye. I love you all to bits. Be sure to subscribe to the Spirit Girl podcast show, to leave a 5-star rating and review, and to tell someone you love to. And together, let's feel good from within. Bye for now.